Welcome to Herbally Yours, an adventure into the world of natural medicine. Here is your host, Dr. Ellen Kamai, the natural nurse who will help you take the leap to ultimate wellness.
Greetings and thank you for joining me, Ellen Kamai, the natural nurse, for another edition of Herbally Yours, right here on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. You can listen live on air the old-fashioned way, like in the radio in your house or the radio in your car. Do you still have either of those? I do. Or, of course, you can listen online at iHeartRadio, Odyssey, TuneIn app, smart speakers, nccradio.org, or download our award-winning WHPC app to catch all the shows from WHPC. Herbally Yours consistently brings you the latest information about the many facets in the world of natural living. And we have been doing that since 1987, since 1990 on this exact show. And today we have as our guest James LaValle, who is a registered pharmacist and a clinical nutritionist and a very well-known and prolific author. He is board-certified clinical nutritionist and the CEO of Metabolic Code Enterprises, with 40 years of clinical experience in metabolic and integrative medicine. He serves as the academic co-chair for the American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine and is appointed faculty member and course educator for the Integrative Medicine Postgraduate Program at George Washington University School of Health Sciences. He has authored more than 20 books, including Cracking the Metabolic Code, and serves as a scientific advisor for probiotics.com. So thank you so much for being our guest today, James LaValle.
It's great to be back. I always enjoy when we get to chat.
And you're always doing something really new. Now, just in your bio alone, I'm sure there's a lot of words that might need further explanation in terms of, helping our audience. Because that word anti-aging is being thrown around a lot. Yet I think your organization that you belong to, the American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine, actually is kind of one of the last words about that.
The reality is that what we're really talking about is longevity medicine, right? Like, how do we really keep people in homeostasis as long as we can? And obviously, nutrients and diet and lifestyle and mindfulness and, all the things that go into how we live is, really making a big difference. And then, then you can layer in, are bioidentical hormones appropriate? Where is somebody's transcriptome? Like, how have their genes been turned on or turned off? Or is there a use for peptides? I mean, so in the end, what I think when you hear anti-aging, I think, you're starting to classify aging as a disease. I think aging is wisdom. But I want to be healthy with my aging process so that I can continue to be vibrant and alive and really have a great health span. So that's kind of the way I look at that.
Me too, because you know what?
Anti-aging.
I don't like that word anti-aging because even people who say that anti-aging, they don't look 20 when they're like me in our mid-70s. They don't look 20.
Right.
I mean, I think I look really great for mid-70s. That's completely different.
That's right.
So that's why I love to say healthy aging.
Yeah, that's just the term that's been adopted, I think, and I totally agree with you. I mean, I turned 63, and I'm a very healthy 63, and I'm proud that I'm a very healthy 63.
Some of the things that you write about, I'm interested in this new book, The Metabolic Code. What exactly does that mean, cracking the metabolic code?
Well, I think for the longest time, people didn't connect that we are a whole body, that we have systems that are communicating and working together. So a good example of that would be if I get under stress and my cortisol goes up, and when my cortisol goes up, it keeps blood glucose in my blood because you think you're going to be fighting a white tiger. In fact, you're in a traffic jam. And your insulin starts to go up to start to kind of manage the chronic problems of having too much glucose in your bloodstream. And now with the cortisol being up and the glucose and insulin up, you start storing fat more. You start having problems with energy production because as your cortisol goes up, it lowers your thyroid. And so it's getting people to understand that your body works together as a concert. It's a symphony. And it's really understanding that, the gut bones is connected to the intestine bones, connected to the brain bone, right? Everybody's heard about gut
That's a good one.
relationships, right? Right? And it's like if I eat poorly or I've got a lot of antibiotics on board, or for whatever reason, I change my microbiome, maybe not enough fiber, maybe too much sugar, or maybe it's because of a certain medication I'm on. That inflammatory signaling that can be initiated in the gut can then be signaled through the enteric nervous system that connects to the brain and starts to trigger neuroinflammatory responses, which can lead to things like anxiety and minor depressions and feeling foggy headed. I always ask people, do you feel like you're pushing a thought through Jello? And they kind of look at me and stare, and then they go, oh yeah, that's how I feel. And so the metabolic code was really about trying to get people to understand that there's no surprises about what happens to your body. I mean, if you get in an acute accident, that's one thing. But for the most part, we're on a journey as we're aging. And that journey can either be beautiful with managing your chemistry and managing the way you feel, taking responsibility for the type of lifestyle choices you make. And that will most likely pay dividends for you as you're aging. Or you can kind of do whatever you want. And then all of a sudden the wheels start coming off the cart and you start gaining weight and your blood sugar starts going up and you start getting achy. And, before you know it, you're having trouble sleeping and you're tired and your mood's flat. And so it's important that you understand you are the one empowered to help your health. And that was the purpose of writing the Metabolic Code book.
Well, there are certainly genetic factors also.
Yeah, there are. I think there are genetic factors, but I think genetics, if you look, I mean, I've still really looked at genetics quite a bit. And I think, genetics in and of themselves play a smaller role than the activation, the transcriptomics, the activation of the genetics. What genes have actually been turned on or turned off that are leading you down to a chronic, illness pattern? Because we have a lot of people out that will say, oh, wow, if I've got this gene, I take this vitamin, and therefore it's not going to, my gene's not going to turn on. Well, that really isn't the case. If you get exposed to things, you're under stress, your diet's poor, any number of meta-inflammatory responses can start to activate those, those SNPs that you've got. And then you have to be concerned with, well, how do I turn those off, right? How do I just blew the circuit breaker. How do I flip that back on so that the proper flow of energy through my body is back, homeostasis, right?
And the good part is that there are things that you can do as soon as you decide to take matters into your own hands and be proactive.
Oh, without a doubt. I think one of the biggest things that you think about is, how do I eat? I mean, in general, people eat too much. They eat too often. They eat too late. They pick the wrong foods. They don't get enough sleep. They don't move, and they're stressed. So we could talk about a lot of other problems, but I think the first step for people is making conscious choices about what they eat. And it's kind of expensive for a lot of people.
So I love this because you do all this really in-depth science. Obviously, you're a pharmacist. You're really knowledgeable. Your book about drugs and which nutrients they interfere with is still my go-to. Right. I don't think it's in print. I wish you would do that book again. I really do, because it's hard to find that information. And I like to teach doctors about that because it's well known, but it's not easily accessible about the nutrient depletion of pharmaceuticals. So you go into so many of these great in-depth scientific discussions, but yet the topic that I was told that you wanted to talk about today, which is so down to earth, is called staying healthy on a budget.
That's right. So Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, because and by the way, I can send you, Ellen, the latest updated ebook edition of just kind of the list of the latest drug nutrient depletions, because they didn't want to reprint that big old book again, but we've kept the database up. So I'll be more than happy to send you an ebook version of that.
Thank you. I would love to have that, because it's so important. Because how many people are on, let's say, polypharmacy? I mean, almost everyone by the time they're 60s.
Absolutely. Yeah, and we also have another one, drug-induced microbiome disruptions. So I also started doing research in that area, where there's about 25% of the drugs in the U.S. market are thought to disrupt the microbiome. So that's another one. I'll send you both, because I know you're so good at educating healthcare providers. I'll get them both to you. But I mean, the big thing for me, I think it's ground zero, is that more and more people are complaining of budget on food. I still argue that I think you can eat healthier, cheaper than stopping and getting fast food and going out to dinner. And a lot of people now are, ordering Uber Eats. It's two of their meals a day are bought, and you start looking at that, and it can be expensive.
You know what? I actually have made clients write down their food budget, especially those people who claim that they're low income, and they are low income. They are low income, and they really have this misbelief that it's cheaper to eat that junky food than to have cabbage and brown rice and some cut up chicken, which it isn't. It's so much cheaper to just cook a little bit at home.
It absolutely is. I think for a lot of people, you get into, they have to learn how to cook. It's not like in the blue zones, I mentioned in the treatment, the blue zones, you go to Sardinia, or you go to, Icaria, Greece, or Okinawa, people are just cooking vegetables as a part of their daily life, because that's never changed. Whereas here, vegetables became, whatever got sprinkled on their bag of Dorito chips, right? The tomato powder or whatever, and or the corn for the chip, right? And I think that, there's, first of all, you got to make a conscious decision you want to eat better. Second of all, if you're having trouble, if you're in a food desert, and some lower income families are in food deserts, sometimes buying fresh food can go bad, and so when they're on a tight budget, you got to watch that. And I actually advocate, if you're on a tight budget, buy some organic frozen vegetables. I mean, frozen vegetables are picked at their height. They're flash frozen, so they maintain their nutrients. Kind of got to watch cooking them, because they can get mushy, and then they're not all that flavorful, right? But it's not a bad way to go, especially if you're someone that's living alone. Or I know for us, we became empty nesters in the last year and a half, I guess now. And
isn't that fun? I love that.
I love it, actually. I loved it. I mean, we had my father was living with us, and God bless him, he lived to 91, but then passed. My son, who is a college athlete, was living with us no longer. But I mean, and all of a sudden, the fridge, which used to be full of food, doesn't need to be full of food, but we were still buying as if it needed to be full of food. And so we started planning each meal individually, using services to order our food and getting quality food. Not pre-made. We love to make food. My father was a chef. My wife's a dietitian. We love being in the kitchen cooking. So I know it's a little odd for a lot of folks, but you can plan out your food and be surprised how reasonable your budget can be, especially if you stick to eating that food. Instead of, hey, I'm going to stop and get a bag of potato chips. I'm going to stop and get this cookie. Because it's interesting, Alan, I don't know about you, but where I live, I drive on the way home, and all I see are donut shops and liquor stores. I don't see any broccoli shops. So you don't have that opportunity. When people are stopping, it's usually convenient stuff. So I think frozen stuff is great for people on a budget.
Oh, I think so too.
And reclose it.
How I cook it, first of all, like what you're saying is true. Because when I'm with my husband, we eat more food. But when I'm in New York in the summer, it's just me cooking just for me. And if I buy a whole head of broccoli, I'll make it once, maybe even again. But then there's this whole giant amount left that's yellow in a week. So I switched to, I actually buy an organic one, pretty cheap at the farmer's market, and I cut it into pieces and put it in a slide plastic bag and freeze it myself. And that works really well. And then the best way I find to cook it is just in a steamer. And it doesn't get mushy, and it's super fast right before you want to eat it.
Yeah, and once again, that's what we do, right? And when I look at people that are, are really on a budget, I just want them to get them to try eating vegetables. And like if they're only going to the grocery store, they don't have a farmer's market by them. They're on, they're on that budget. Just think to do exactly what you said. You can get fresh, you can freeze it, you can basically cook it with steaming is a great way to do it. You really retain the nutrients that way.
And a steamer costs $5. A steamer.
Oh yeah, nothing. It's a little thing you get unfold. You unfold it and you put it
like
in your
a basket.
pan. It's easy peasy. Yeah, that's a good one. I think the other one is if they're going to stores, they can look at couponing on the app of the store. Like look for bargains. Is chicken on sale?
Wait. So I have to push back on that because I just went to my grocery store and they had a big sign about items I wanted, even fresh strawberries that were organic, and they were on sale, but you had to do an app. But I don't do apps. So you see,
but I mean, that's okay if you don't, but you know what? They're not printing the darn coupon that goes in the Sunday papers anymore. So you're kind of,
And a lot of the mothers certainly do apps. They're on their phone all day long. And this woman next to me just, she must have been about 19 years old. She went right on and got the app for the strawberries. So yeah, it's so funny as things evolve. But that is such good information. And I want to reintroduce you here, James. So Herbally Yours listeners, thank you so much for joining us today. Right here on the Voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. You can listen live online at nccradio.org or iHeartRadio or anywhere that your podcasts play. And for more information on today's guest or topic, you can email us at whpc@ncc.edu. Or you can find James LaValle really anywhere. And we'll let him tell you where, like on Twitter, and he has a website. And his books are phenomenal. I suggest that you actually collect them. And depending on what kind of listener you are, if you are the kind of listener who's a high-tech person, highly trained, scientific, and want to know the real explanation about some of these concepts, James has books on that. And then today's show, he put out that he'd like to talk to the general public, to anyone, you don't need a scientific or a holistic health background, about staying healthy on a budget. So thank you for all the work that you do, James LaValle.
Well, I appreciate that. It's been a passion. I mean, I think just like you, Ellen, we've known each other a long time. And I think, I don't know if we could be having any more fun than doing what we're doing, helping people to learn about how to stay healthy. There's nothing more rewarding. And
using ourselves as guinea pigs. You do this for yourself.
Yeah, I'm probably I don't want to call it regimented. I believe in the lifestyle. I mean, I'm very fit at my age. I take nutrients. I believe in botanicals. I research. I formulate. I do all, obviously I've written lots of books. I teach doctors all over the world. I chair the Peptide Society as well as co-chair at the American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine. It's a passion.
Let's talk peptides, because I bet a lot of people don't even know what that is. So what are peptides?
So a peptide is so proteins are made up of a string of amino acids, right? Peptides are shorter chains of amino acids, smaller than proteins, but bigger than individual amino acids. And peptides are signaling compounds that are made in your body, and either under injury or at age, we can skew the how we produce those peptides, and maybe we can't repair as well, or our immune system doesn't work as well. And we can utilize peptides. Insulin, for example, is a peptide. So peptide research has been around for a very long time. The new drugs that are out for diabetes, Mounjaro, is a peptide. So all peptides are strings of amino acids that are basically made in your body, and that they're made now as a compound that you can take, and it helps your body to kind of function more efficiently. And I kind of look at it almost as the intersection between a full-blown drug and a nutrient. It's kind of, I really like peptides a lot. I mean, I just wrote a handbook on peptides for doctors.
So what about the Ozempic, which is all the rage now because people find they can use it as just a weight loss drug, whether they have diabetes or not?
Well, Ozempic is a peptide, right?
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
And the thing is, I mean, look, people weren't getting any results for weight loss. And we can argue about why and how. I mean, I know people that tried really hard, they couldn't get to lose, and I know people that don't try at all. And I think when you use Ozempic just as kind of, I don't want to call it a cheat, but you're not going to change your lifestyle. You're not going to learn how to eat responsibly. You're not going to manage your stress. You're not going to get more sleep. You're not going to drink more water. You're not going to move. If you're not going to change anything and you take Ozempic, it is doubtful that you're going to maintain that weight loss, because you're going to go back to your same old habits as soon as you get off of it when you hit your weight loss goal. And of course, that's what a lot of people complain of. I think that the people that are saying that, oh, you lose all muscle and no fat, they didn't read the multiple studies. You lose about the same fat to muscle ratio as if you're going on a lower calorie diet, which in my opinion is still too much. It's, you're losing 30% lean mass. So yeah, it's a peptide. And it's like anything, I think it can be used responsibly, or it can be used as a lazy way to try to get something accomplished. And I'm not in favor of doing it that lazy way. In fact, in our clinics, we use that compound, but we require management of stress hormones, changing their diet, getting into a whole foods diet, eating way more vegetables. All of those things, controlling your metabolic inflammation. Like, I'm a huge fan, as you well know, Alan, I love aged garlic extract. I love Kyolic because, when you look at the studies from this last year that came out, reducing inflammatory cytokines in people that were overweight, for example, or interleukin-6, TNF-alpha, reducing left ventricle enlargement in people with diabetes. That's incredible. Like that it actually caused the heart to not continue to get overworked and enlarged. It reduced the size of it. I mean, the multitude of studies that support blood pressure and improved blood vessel regulation and protection. I just think people should think about, well, what nutrients do I do that are specific for me as well? Is changing their diet, is thinking they're going to go get Ozempic and all the weight's going to fall off and it's all going to be wonderful. And, we're already seeing the reports that it isn't if you don't change your lifestyle.
So those are really, really good suggestions. Now, in terms of garlic, is just eating garlic the same, or you're talking about specifically the aged garlic studies?
Yeah, I mean, there's over 900 publications on aged garlic extract. You can eat garlic, and I love garlic. I mean, I'm Italian. I love garlic, right? And everybody should smell like garlic, in my opinion. But the reality is that it is different. There is value in eating garlic. Yes, it's an antimicrobial. It has some immune benefits. But if you're looking at when you age garlic, as what they did at Wakanaga, you age it for 20 months, you change the physical properties of the garlic. The volatile compounds go away, new water-soluble compounds appear. So you're making kind of it's not a fermentation. It's not exactly like, cabbage to sauerkraut. How people think, oh, it's fermentation. It's a non-fermenting aging process that draws up more water-soluble beneficial compounds that lead to these characteristics of reversing vulnerable plaque, reducing the rate of plaque formation in the arteries after someone already has developed it. The benefits in people with diabetes, the benefits on people with blood pressure. It has a resistant starch or prebiotic effect where it helps to feed the microbiome. It helps with building T killer cells. So it's got this great diversity with it that is specific to the aging process that was developed. So, love garlic, eat a lot of it, but if I'm going to take something therapeutically for a wide array of benefit, that's what I use.
That's interesting. So it changes it into somewhat physiologically a different substance.
Yeah, you basically do. You get S-allyl cysteine gets formed, and you get different polysaccharides that are immune friendly that develop, and you lose the oil soluble compounds that give the stinking rose effect, right? So you don't smell or get that odor when you take aged garlic extract because the compounds responsible for that are gone.
So that's really good information about it. I've been keeping up with the research that company has been doing for many, many years. If people want to find out more about what you're doing, what's the best way to do that?
They go to jimlavalle.com, LAVALLE.com. That's probably the best. Obviously, I'm an editor at probiotics.com and, contribute there. And metaboliccode.com is another good one. And then all those things have my Instagram or whatever, Twitter and all that good stuff. Posted, especially jimlavalle.com. Like you don't use apps. I'm like, those things. My staff has got all that stuff up there.
Yeah, I have them. I have them all up there. I do have them all up there because I actually have an assistant who does all that, with my stuff.
Right, I do too.
But
figuring
out how to do it and get it on my own personal phone, I'm not interested. But anyway.
Exactly.
But we do use it. Yeah, naturalnurse.com has Twitter, this, that, and the other thing. Anyway.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you so much for being our guest today, Dr. James LaValle, and just fascinating information.
Well, I love being on the show. Thank you.
And thank you, listeners, for tuning in once again to Herbally Yours, produced in the studios of 90.3 WHPC, Nassau Community College, Garden City, New York. For further information, email us at whpc@ncc.edu. This is your host, Ellen Kamai, at naturalnurse.com, inviting you to join us next week for another edition of Herbally Yours. Until then, stay healthy.